Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of Iredell Statesville Schools EDTalks. Our guest today is Terry Campbell, and he is the Director of Student Transportation for the Iredell Statesville Schools. Terry, welcome, and thanks for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I know a lot of people would like to know a little bit about you personally and your career here in the Iredell Statesville Schools. And if I remember correctly, you came to work for us right out of high school.
About a year after high school, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I drove a bus in high school, actually.
Wow, so you've been at this for a long, long time. How many years of service do you have?
Qualifying service, 36 years.
36 years. So you know a lot about transportation inside and out, and you run a great department. We're very, very proud of you and the men and women that work under your supervision there at the bus garage. A lot of people are really surprised to know how large the transportation service for the school system is. But we operate a fleet of approximately how many buses?
We have 209 buses, and we also take care of 39 buses for Mooresville graded schools.
And a lot of people don't realize that, but the state does fund one garage per county.
Yes, sir.
And so Mooresville, being a smaller system, does rely on us to provide services for their fleet of buses as well. That's good to know that. Now, there's lots of components to transportation. Of course, procuring the buses, purchasing them and servicing them and keeping them running, that's one part of the business, and it's a massive part of the business. But there's other components to the transportation department as well, like routing of school buses. And in our school system, we do have routing specialists that help us design those routes and assign kids. Or if you could tell us a little bit about what goes into establishing safe bus routes.
The state came up several years ago with what they call the TIMS program, Transportation Information Management System. We have a supervisor and 4 area specialists that work under the supervisor that route buses. It's computer-based, and then they tweak those, and with concerns from the parents or school officials, we go out and change those.
Mm-hmm. So if a parent did have a concern about a bus stop, they can call the bus garage or they can contact their local school, and we'll be glad to look at those stops and make adjustments as necessary, correct?
Right. We've got a form online,
Mm-hmm.
and the schools have copies of that. The parent fills out a section and sends into the school, which the school has a section to complete. They send it to the transportation routing specialist supervisor, and then she documents and sends them on to our office.
Very good. I know that each year Raleigh constantly watches student transportation, and recently there was some concerns raised not only in North Carolina but really across the nation about the number of folks that are running the stop arm on school buses. So the Department of Public Instruction has this school year put some new measures in place to enhance student safety. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about those hand signals and what's required of us now and what we're doing with our bus drivers to get them trained. If I'm not mistaken, these new regulations go into effect in January of this year. Yeah, tell us about the hand signals.
They came out, and several other states have been doing this for years. North Carolina recognized the need to implement some other measure to protect the children that are having to cross the road. So they went to what they call the driver-student hand signals. The driver, when they activate their warning lights 300 feet in advance of the stop, warning the motorist that they are preparing to make a passenger stop, they come up to a stop and they are to look at traffic in front of them and behind. And when it's safe, when they first stop, they're to hold up their hand, motioning the children to stay where they're located on the shoulder of the road, away from the pavement. Mm-hmm. And when they check that traffic can safely stop, they give them the thumbs up and open the door, which activates the warning lights and the walk-on stop sign.
Now, how are we training our bus drivers to be ready for that initiative in January?
we met with all the area coordinators. Each school has a coordinator, routing coordinator, and give them handouts to give the drivers. Also handouts to make copies to send home with the students, showing the parents and the students what was going to be required and expected of them. The routing coordinators went back to the schools, met with the drivers before school started on the 24th, and give them those handouts. They're on stock paper, hard stock, and they have pictures and the explanation of the hand signals.
Now, are we going to post that on our website too, so that parents can take a look at that and review it with their children?
Yes.
All right, good. Now, in addition to the hand signals, we constantly train our drivers. Getting a CDL and a bus certification is not an easy task. And I know that your office helps us with that as well, procuring drivers and training drivers and whatnot. Could you describe the process, just a little bit of a candidate, a prospective driver would go through and what the requirements are? I know you've got to have basically a flawless driving record to even qualify to get a school bus driver's license.
Right. There is a questionnaire, school bus driver questionnaire. That also is online. Also copies at the school for anyone interested in driving a bus. As you say, they have to have a 99% flawless driving record. There's questions to answer. There's health questions to answer, because you don't want a driver that has major health issues behind the wheel of a children's bus. They have to go through 3 days of class after passing the medical portion, and then there's 3 days on road. They recently changed, federal law has changed that they have to have a CDL learner's permit, 14 days. They have to have that in their possession before they can qualify to take the driving portion of training.
But that's new this year.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's slowing the process down just a little bit.
Yes.
I've
We've had to
heard-
put off one class because of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that's a little bit of a barrier. Maybe the state will reconsider that later on. It's slowing us down just a little bit and getting people in the pipeline.
Right. This is a federal. This is not state.
Okay, yeah. Terry, I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about some of the other things that are big topics in student transportation. Sometimes we have parents that will call us and say, I've got a bus stop in a community that's not safe, and could there be registered sex offenders in that community? If that were to happen and a parent has that concern, they can share that information with us, and we could help address those kinds of issues too.
Right, we do.
How does that process work?
They notify the school. Those offenders are registered, and there is a website on the county website, Sheriff's Department website, and also the state website. You can put in your address and it'll show up to a 5-mile radius of the offenders listed in your area. We have stops where there are offenders in the general area, but as long as they're not having to, the students are not having to walk past the offender's house or stand near the offender's house, most of the time we go ahead and make the stop.
Excellent. So there is a lot of thought goes into these bus routes and student safety, and that's reassuring as a parent that so much thought goes into this. Another topic that you deal with quite a bit in student transportation, of course, is severe weather and the closing of school and things of that nature. There's a lot goes into making that decision. Tell us just a little bit about what a typical morning looks like when it's prediction of bad weather and making that call in our community.
That call starts about 3 or 4 days out before the event. We start looking at forecasts, national weather areas. We look at all the data from the radars. We actually get up the morning of the event if it hasn't started before the nightfall. And there's a team of 5 technicians from the garage that goes out and checks different areas. We try to catch the roads that we know have given us trouble in the past. That decision is usually relayed back. The information is relayed back to the garage. There's one person there, and they relay it on to the associate superintendent, Mr. Armstrong, with our recommendation and what we're seeing.
And I know it's a tough decision, but our mantra is always students first and their safety. And we also have to consider our novice drivers, our high school drivers that may not be used to driving in bad weather when we make those kind of calls. But we always try to make that on the side of the student and err on the side of caution. I know that running the garage is a huge task. There's lots of things that go into keeping that fleet of buses operating. We do a lot of the work internally, and your team of mechanics and whatnot do a lot of the repair work, some of the body work. Is there anything that you outsource to the community as far as keeping that fleet running?
Machine work on engines is outsourced. Other than that, overhauling engines, we do it there. Transmissions, we do exchange out because of time issues.
Right. And you guys also get a lot of miles out of these buses. What's the typical mileage on a bus when you retire it from the fleet?
Well, when you say retire, are you talking about from the regular fleet or the spare fleet?
Yeah, you use them after they've left that regular fleet as a spare, but
Right.
Typically, how many miles will a bus be when we put it out to pasture and sell it or something of that nature?
Currently, the state is replacing regular run route buses at 20 years and at least 150,000 miles.
Wow.
They have to meet both of those criteria.
Yeah.
Time we retire them from the spare fleet, they're pushing 290, 300,000 miles.
So you get a lot of use out of those things.
Right.
I know a question that we get quite a bit is, why don't we start school at the same time, elementary, middle, and high? And the answer to that question is, if we were to do that, we would have to double the number of buses that we're actually running on the roads. You might can help explain this too. We run dual routes each day. There is an elementary route that starts the day for us, and those elementary children are picked up, dropped off. Then those same buses and same drivers go out and run a second route with middle school and high school students. And by doing that, we incur a lot of cost savings. It cuts our fleet by 50%, requires us to have less drivers. So that really is a decision that is made based on cost. If we wanted to go with one schedule, that would be cost prohibitive in our district, don't you think?
Yes, plus we currently we do have a shortage of drivers, so to find drivers for 200 more buses, it would be a challenge.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot goes into student transportation, and I really appreciate you being here today and talking about some of the up and coming topics and some of the points of interest in your department. And Terry, I really do appreciate too the emphasis that you place on safety. I know in talking to you over the years, you take this work very, very seriously, and those students' safety is very personal to you. And you and your department have a stellar record of safety, and we are very, very proud of you and thankful for what you do every single day. So thanks for being here.
Thank you. And I have a wonderful staff that take their job serious and dedicated.
You really do. We're very proud of you. Well, thanks for watching today. We hope you know a little bit more now about student transportation in our school system. If you'd like more information, you can visit our website, and there is a link there for student transportation. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call your school or the bus garage. and we'll be glad to come out and do presentations on student transportation safety. But thanks again for watching. Have a good day.